Hi everyone, this is Charmander, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing with you the factors involved when it comes to picking the right alliance for you. So the first half of this video is going to be centered around the 12 different factors to look for when it comes to picking an alliance for you to join. The second half of this video is going to be a video that is focused on recruitment for my current alliance, FTD, as we are currently looking for players to join our alliance and join our team to battle alongside us in future PvP events. With that being said, the 12 factors that you want to look at when it comes to picking an alliance for you to join are their governing style, competitiveness level, types of players, alliance vault gold distribution, player troops, whether that be T4, T5, or T6, their play style, whether it's in an old server or a newer server, their social aspect, treatment of members, metro control, healing tools, and fun level. I do suggest doing a trial and error and try out a few alliance in your Doomsday journey before sticking to one. You also want to ask yourself if you want to be a normal member or be part of management as an R4 or be an alliance leader, which is also called an R5 in this game. Some people also prefer to be a floater, never committing to one alliance, and they want to hop from one alliance to the next. So if you're that type of player, then go ahead and be that type of player. Now, to assess these different factors, I'll be sharing with you all the past alliances that I've been in, as well as the current one I'm currently a part of, and share with you their individual pros and cons to give you an idea how I ended up where I am today. So with that being said, the first alliance I ever joined as early as my day one in this game is actually called DC, or Dreamcatcher. So this alliance has one leader, her name is Jen, and they have several different R4s. The good thing about this alliance, if you look at their current roster, is a lot of their members from back when I joined nearly a year ago, a lot of the R4s are pretty much still the same, and a lot of the members are still the same, which kind of tells you they're doing something right. The second alliance that I joined is called Grow Up, or GROP, and the leader is Hi Guy. He is one of the YouTubers, and the alliance is co-led by Weldon, because this alliance actually started in another server, and then we went to another server to merge and create this new Grow Up alliance. That's why there's two leaders in this alliance, and they rotate being R5. Now for my current alliance, our current leader is Spicy Lady. So this is in a newer server, which I'll discuss more later on. So with that being said, let's look at the different aspects of each alliance and their different way of operating their alliance. So the first factor we're going to look at is governing style. So on the left hand side, we are going to go with a dictatorship style of leadership, while on the far right hand corner, we're going to have the anarchy type of leadership. Okay, so it's going to be a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being in the dictator side of things, while 10 is being on the anarchy side of things. So dictator style of leadership means there's lower freedom, higher control, but also higher levels of organization. While an alliance that is on the anarchy side of things, it's going to have a higher level of freedom, lower levels of control, higher levels of flexibility, but has a tendency to become more disorganized. So my first alliance, DC, I would rank it as a 2. So it is pretty much a dictatorship and quite on the controlling side when it comes to running the alliance itself and the members. Some things that they did that was quite on the brutal side of things is if you farm outside of the territory, they will attack you without even warning or telling you that it's even against the rules. This actually happened to me within my first few days in this alliance. I didn't even know that you're not supposed to farm outside of alliance territory, and without telling me that this is against the rules, one of their R4s attacked me. I still remember which player did that, and I've kind of held a grudge on this jerk for doing that without even telling me, hey, you're not supposed to farm outside of territory. Now, the good thing about higher control, though, is the alliance is more organized. So when we did do PvP events in DC, it was quite more organized. Like, it was clear on who's doing the rally, who's doing the garrison, where people should be positioning themselves in, and encouraging members to join rallies in garrison. So that part was the good side of this type of governing style. The one thing that was good about DC, though, is they were pretty low on the censorship side. That means you can say a lot of things that could be seen as offensive, but you could get away with it because they're not as picky when it comes to that stuff. So I kind of like that aspect of this alliance. The other alliance that I joined, GROP, they were a little bit higher on the censorship, and you can't talk about politics or any other topic that could be seen as offensive. So that part I didn't quite like, because I think it was kind of restricting the freedom of expression, or at the very least freedom of speech. So GROP, I would label them as an 8. So more on the anarchy side. So definitely there was a lot of freedom in this alliance, and the leader, Hi Guy, he kind of just left the alliance to do whatever they want. So at first it was really good and liberating, but after a while I kind of felt like, oh, maybe we should have a little bit more organization to just add some cohesion into the alliance. So my current alliance, FTD, we are probably on the 7 on the scale of 0 to 10. So we are closer to the high freedom, low control, high flexibility side of things, but we are trying to increase our organization as well. So it is improving, but hopefully we can get to a 5 where it's a mix of high organization without stepping into people's freedom. Next, let's look at competitiveness. So from a scale of 0 to 10 again, 0 being passive, 10 being hyper competitive. My first alliance, DC, when I first joined it, it was fairly on the competitive side. I would say it was a 7. And the longer I stayed there, the more competitive it became. So by the time I left, it was around 8. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 9 nowadays. Now for GROP, when I first joined them, they just restarted the management team and we had some members who were hyper competitive. So I would say at that point, our competitive level was closer to 9, if not 10. It was like really competitive. But it also got really toxic. So when that member left, our competitive level actually dropped down to 7. And ironically enough, we started winning more events. So it's not always good to be hyper competitive because it maybe takes away from the fun of it. My current alliance right now, FTD, I would say we are at a 7 for the competitive level of things. We're transitioning over to 8. We are very competitive when it comes to PvP events. We fight to the bitter end, but outside the event, we're not competitive at all. We're pretty chill and we kind of just joke around most of the time or have some fun discussions. Next, we're gonna look at alliance vault distribution. So on the left hand side, it's gonna be more of a communism style of managing the vault. And I say that in the bad way of communism, which is the higher ups steal all the money and the lower people don't get anything. And on the far right side of things, it would be more capitalistic, where the more work you put in, the more resources you get. So when I was in DC, the gold vault wasn't a thing yet. So I don't know how they do the distribution right now. So I'm gonna put a question mark for that. As far as Grow Up was concerned, they actually were really good at distributing gold. That was one of their biggest strengths. They were pretty fair at it, where they look at the members who did really well during the event and they would be nominated to receive gold. And the R4s and R5s would also get gold for the work that they did to help manage the alliance. I thought that was a really good system. So for FTD, my current alliance, we actually have a very similar system to GROP, but we do spread out the gold even more than GROP. So it could be a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because a lot of members do get a share of the gold. The bad thing is there's lesser of that gold because the more people you share it, the less everyone gets. Next, we're gonna look at what troop tier the players have in each of these alliances. So my first alliance, DC, when I first joined, it was mostly T4 and a bit of T5 players and maybe one T6 player. But by the time I left, they was transitioning more to T5 and T6 players. I think nowadays they have more T6 players than before. GROP, when I first joined, it was a pure T5 alliance. Like I think we had like 1 or 2 T6. It was so T5 saturated, but it was actually really good because the team had really good field teamwork. So it actually worked out and we were able to beat T6 players. My current alliance, FTD, we have more T4 players than any other type of players. We do have T5 players as well, which is the second most populous of the tier of troop type. And then obviously we have some T6. So we are trying to increase the number of T6 players we have. So it's still a work in progress. And I'll talk about that more when it comes to recruitment. Next, we're going to talk about playstyle. So for playstyle, I'm going to talk about whether they were field focus, rally focus, or garrison focus. So basically my first alliance, DC, it was a really heavily rally and garrison alliance. It didn't do much field. It was mainly to protect and defend bases and towers and also rallying opponents' towers and bases. So they were quite good at that. Now, when I joined GROP, it was the complete opposite. They were dominant on the field, but the garrison and rally was not that great. It was okay. We did have one guy who was our range rally captain. Later on, when a lot of those elitist players kind of left GROP, the alliance became more field and rally. However, the garrison never quite caught up and garrison was still struggled by the time I left the alliance. My current alliance, FTD, we are very heavy on rally and field, but we are not the best in garrison. So I'll be talking about us recruiting players for the sake of garrison later on. And of course, we're happy to have more rally and field players as well. Next, I'm going to talk about old server versus new server. So I've never been to one of the old server because both my alliance, DC and GROP, I would say they're more in like the medium server. It was in the 400s. So it's not quite like the really old server in the 100s or 200s, but it's not quite one of the newer ones. My new alliance right now, FTD, it's in the new server 645. And there's pros and cons. So the older server you are, the better the alliance tech tend to be. So for us, because we are in a newer server, we're still working on a lot of alliance tech. So when we go to a PvP event, we might be lacking a little bit on the alliance tech side of things just because we are a newer server. Next, we're going to look at the social aspect of each of those alliances. So from the left-hand side of things, there's the more corporation style of social aspect. So it's more of a transactional relationship. While on the right-hand side, it's more family-like. So it's more caring, or you feel like you're cared for more. So I would say when I was in DC, it felt very much like a family. And I think that's one of their strengths that they have, because if you go to that alliance, a lot of the members that I played with are still there. So the fact that they stayed that long is because they felt like they're part of family, which is a really strong and powerful thing. When I was in GROP, it was the complete opposite. It's definitely a corporation. Like, people were dispensable. They can easily get rid of you in exchange for a player that is better. They didn't do it like to get rid of you on purpose. It was more like you got neglected. So you didn't feel like anyone cared. While with DC, you weren't that neglected. So people did talk to you and stuff, and it did have that feeling of family. My current alliance, FTD, FTD, it's more on the family side of things as well. So we are a tight knit group and people chat, and the management, we have an open inbox so members can easily message us. And I don't even remember the last time I yelled at a member. I think the only time I've seen any of the management team yell at a member is if someone's about to burn them. Like, let's say they were outside of our territory, like the tower went down and now someone's gonna barbecue them. That's the only time I think we yell, but it's not because we're yelling to yell at them because they're in trouble. We're yelling at them because we want them to move because we don't want them to get zeroed, right? But otherwise, yeah, I don't really see yelling as a thing that we do. When I was in DC, people got yelled at all the time. So I think that part I didn't really quite like. A lot of people in management yelling at members. While GROP, the good thing about them is they also didn't yell at members that much. So it was a positive thing that they had. Next, we're gonna look at member treatment. So on the left-hand side, there's gonna be more externally focused, and on the right-hand side, it's gonna be more internally focused. So externally focused means there is a strong focus on the alliance image. So this alliance cares a lot about what other alliance thinks of them. Tends to be on the clicky side of things and also status oriented. While on the right-hand side, there is a focus on member long-term development, but lacking in the win now at all costs drive. So there's pros and cons in both sides of things. So when it comes to externally focused, because your alliance tend to look good on the outside, other alliance, when it comes to major PvP events, they will want to ally with you because your alliance looks strong and powerful. So that's actually a huge benefit, and you have a higher chance of winning if you have an externally focused alliance. Well, if you have an internally focused alliance, you might not get the best allies because you're not focused on looking good publicly. But the good thing is the members tend to be more tight-knit and more loyal, and it's more relaxed. So there's definitely pros and cons to both sides of things, and ideally you want to have a bit of both to have a successful alliance. So I would say when I was in DC, they were slightly more on the externally focused side of things. I would give them a 4, but they did develop members, but they were a little bit more clicky on which member that they would like to develop. With GROP though, they were definitely externally focused. I would say it's a 1. Like, it was definitely focused on how they look in front of other alliances and their reputation. It was definitely towards the brand of the alliance as opposed to what's actually going internally. So that part I really didn't like about GROP. And also I didn't like that aspect of DC as well when I was there. Although the good thing, like I said, is it was still kind of more on the family oriented side of things. So you felt like you were cared for, but at the same time, it felt like the alliance treated outsiders better than they treated their own members. So it was like a double-edged sword, in my opinion, when I was in DC. So FTD, I would rank a 7. It's definitely more internally focused, and we could definitely work on having more external focus and improve our image so that when we go to PvP events, we get better allies, which is actually one of the weakness that my current alliance has, is not being so image oriented externally. Next, there is metro control. So is the metro in that server shared by multiple different alliances, or does your alliance have total control? So obviously the best case scenario is your alliance has total control, because what happens is you get advantage on top commander because your members are more likely to get buffs when they need it. Also get advantage during PvP events because you'll get access to Marshal, for example, which would make one specific player stronger. Scavenger as well will also make another player stronger, and obviously the president will get a power boost as well. So when I was in DC, they had total control of the metro, which was a really good thing. And when I was in GROP, it was shared between 3 different alliances, and even when it merged to another alliance in another server, it was still shared between 3 different alliances. Now in my current server with FTD, our metro is actually controlled by our alliance, so we don't share with any other alliance, although other alliance member representatives are also part of the law enforcement committee. Next, I'm going to talk about auto healing tools. So when I was in DC back then, they didn't have any auto healing tools, but it looks like nowadays they have a bunch of auto healing tools. In GROP, they had auto healing tools, maybe about 5 to 10 of them, but the problem is they weren't on 24/7, so we couldn't use it all the time to heal our troops during PvP events. For FTD, currently we have 20 of them on 24/7. However, the person that did subscribe to the healing tools for us has left the alliance, so we do have to figure out how to resubscribe again. But I'm pretty sure we can figure it out, and we'll have the 20 healing tools continue running and going in the future. Next, we're going to talk about the fun level of each alliance. So I would say DC was a really fun alliance to be in. I was just a member. I wasn't part of the R4 management team, although I felt like they were potentially grooming me to become an R4 eventually. But it was a really fun alliance. I always think back to those early days when I was playing with them, and I always had a lot of fun in the PvP events. So it was definitely a really fun alliance to be a part of. GROP, however, was such a boring alliance. Oh my god. Many times I would just want to shoot myself. The good thing about GROP though, it was a big learning opportunity for me because it was the first alliance that I joined where I was promoted to R4. So I got a chance to become part of the management team, and at first I was just doing administrative work, and later on I became a war general in that alliance. And actually, I hate to brag, but our first archipelago raid where I was the war general, we won first place. So I did do something right, although I wasn't there long enough to see if that was just a fluke or if I do have a knack as being a war general. Now my current alliance, FTD, it's super fun, at least for me. I don't know if members are having fun. I hope they are. We try to make it as fun as possible. The one thing I do notice is we are definitely more in cohesion in internally because we are so internally focused. The bad thing about that though, because we're so cohesive internally and we don't fight internally that much, there's still that pent up frustration and anger, right? So some of our members do have a bad habit of going to the PvP chat and fighting with other players from other alliances. So there's the pros and cons with everything. It's not always perfect when it comes to like which is the ideal alliance to join. In my opinion, it's better that the members fight someone else outside of the alliance than take it inside. At least that's just my opinion. But I definitely have a lot of fun in this alliance. Actually, this is the funnest alliance I've ever been in. And I became an R4 pretty quickly in this alliance and became the war general. And I've gotten a chance to practice more about that, which I'll talk about more in a bit when it comes to the key players of this alliance. So anyways, that about covers the 12 different factors involved when it comes to picking the right alliance for you. What's going to be important for you is going to be different for me or another player. So essentially, you have to pick the alliance that meets most of the criteria that you're looking for to go build your Doomsday career. I feel like I'm going to stay in this alliance for a very long time, if not for the rest of my Doomsday career. Like I really like FTD. With that being said, I want to transition now to the second part of this video, which is going to be the more recruitment side of things. So if you're someone that is interested in joining FTD, I want to introduce you to my current alliance. Our current leader is Spicy, and she has two accounts. Her R5 account is T4, and she does have another account, which is called Kitty right now. She changes the name every week pretty much, and that account is T5. So she has two accounts. One she uses for fighting and one for admin work. Spicy is in charge of internal and regional affairs, and she is also the head of recruitment and communications. Spicy is a superstar. She is so damn good at what she does. I think this alliance would be dead if she wasn't the leader of this alliance. Like, she is so good. I don't have anything bad to say about her. She is absolutely just so on top of things when it comes to doing the right things for the alliance. And she's also super nice. Like, members love her. She's so nice. So I think we have a really good R5 in our team. Next is going to be me. As you know, I am the YouTuber guy. I am an R4 in this alliance, and my job is the head war general. So I am the one that coordinates war events, whether who is going to be our garrison captain, who is going to rally who, where the field presence is going to go at, what our goal is. So that is my main job for the alliance, which is PvP events. I also help manage smaller events as well, like the doctor event, for example. Although it would be nice if we can later get an R4 to take control of managing those smaller events so that I can focus entirely on the big PvP events, such as IR, AR, or GW. As for what kind of player I am a range main, as you already know if you follow my channel. My strongest hero is Julia with 3.8 million armaments. I focus on rallying, so I'm the main range rally guy. So if we're fighting an infantry person, then I'm gonna be the one rallying. If we're fighting someone that's range, I might be rallying, or could be someone else in our alliance. But definitely if we're fighting infantry, and that's what they're using for garrison, you'll probably see me rallying. I can also garrison okay, and I can also fight in field. And I do have T6 for range as well as infantry. Next, I'd like to introduce you to my real life friend Jigsaw right here. And Jigsaw is one of the R4s. He is infantry field focus, so he has 3.7 million armaments. He's gonna make it a lot stronger when the infantry top commander comes because he's been saving up his resources for that. And as mentioned, he is focused on field battle mostly, but he is working on his Stella Eddy rally and hoping to get it awakened soon so he can also help us with doing infantry rallies. His main job is he is the head of diplomacy. So when we go to PvP events, he is the one doing negotiations with other leaders of other alliances when it comes to building up teams. When I'm not online, he also helps as a war general, and he also helps with some admin work within the server itself. Our next player is Dabin. So Dabin actually came with us from GROP as well. I've always thought he was talented and he really knew what he was talking about, but he was overlooked by the alliance, which I actually thought was a shame because I felt like he had a lot to offer, and I'm glad that he came with us to this new alliance and we vouched for him to become part of the R4 team, and he's been doing quite good. He is in charge of doing Pompeii registration. So if you do Pompeii with our alliance, you will private message Dabin on Monday. He will add you to the list and he'll send out the mails when it comes to what the battle plan is. So he is our Pompeii guy. Right now he's just T5. He said that by the time infantry top commander comes, he said that he has enough resources to push for T6. So we'll see if that's true or not. I think his armaments are pretty decent. I think it's around 3 million, if I had to guess. And right now he's mostly fighting on the field, but he has aspirations to become an infantry rally captain with Stella and Eddy. So over time, he'll eventually get there and he'll help us do that role. Our other R4 is Hades. He was already in this alliance when we joined, and he is in charge of recording who's joining rallies and garrison during PvP events. And we do record the participation during events just to make it fair so that the ones who are participating and who's fighting really hard alongside everyone is the one who get the rewards such as Alliance Gold or Merit Chest. So he's a fairly new player. He's focusing on Rider, and at the moment he's just T4, so he mainly joins rallies and garrisons. Other key players in our alliance is Riker. So Riker is this awesome guy right here. So he is T6. He's a veteran. He's been playing a lot longer than me actually, but he did take a break when the armament got introduced, so he's a little bit behind when it comes to armament knowledge. So he's a jack of all trades. If we need someone to rally, he will rally. If we need someone to garrison with infantry, he will garrison. His armaments is around 2.8 million, so it's still work in progress, but we are all actively helping him get his armament levels up, so hopefully to 3 million first and eventually to 3.5 million and higher. For garrison, he's mainly using Thunder and Tom, but right now he's trying to pivot and trying to awaken Raguro and Riven so that he can be a Raguro Riven garrison. Right now he's also doing rallies with Miyamoto and Adat, but hopefully he can eventually work his way and get Stella and Eddie. Our other T6 player is Neanderthal. He's new to our alliance, but he's a really nice guy. I personally like him. He joined us after the last Genesis War. So he is Rider main. He is T6 and his armaments around 3 million. He's working on strengthening his armaments right now. So at the moment he's mostly focused on field, and he's a terror on the field. He's really good in the field. He was giving us a lot of problems last time because we fought against him actually, but after the event ended, he ended up joining us because me and him just got along really well when we were chatting during the war. So he can also do some Rider rally, but it's still work in progress because he has to get his armaments level up. And another major player we have in our team is Tess. So Tess is our Chasey garrison captain. Like, he is super strong. He has a 4 million power level with his armaments, and his Chasey is awakened, so we currently have him as our main garrison captain. The problem is he hates being a garrison captain. He prefers to fight on field being a Rider main. So he's hoping that we recruit more players to do the garrison job because he'd rather be the backup garrison captain as opposed to being the main garrison captain. That way he can keep fighting on field. He's not T6 yet either. He's a T5, but he's close to T6. So I would probably see that he'll probably get T6 soon. Now, we also have a lot of amazing T5 players who fights in the field and T5 and T4 players who supports rallying garrison. You know, like Wham Jam here and Killer are pretty good in the field, for example, as well as this Klee_1 guy as well. So we do have a decent lineup of T5 players for the field and some T4 players as well for rally and garrison. And I always say to my team that everyone matters. No matter how small you are as a fighter, you matter, because if the small players doesn't join the rally and garrison, then the rally and garrison is not going to be effective. So everyone matters at the end of the day. So with that being said, what does our alliance need right now? So in general, we are open to accepting players that loves to fight hard during PvP events and also shares our values, which you already know after going through all those 12 different factors when it comes to picking an alliance. So whether you're T4, T5, or T6, if you share our values, you like to fight during PvP events, you don't have a big ego, you're not a know-it-all, you're not expecting special treatment, you just want to join a team, be a part of the family, fight hard, and win together, then you're welcome to apply, and we'll definitely discuss you joining our alliance. But in terms of what we really need to really bolster our alliance, well, what we're looking for is someone that's a T6 player or high T5 that has an awakened Raguro and Riven with an armament level of over 3.5 million to become our garrison captain. Now, if your armament level is less than 3.5 million, it's 3 million or higher, feel free to apply as well. And we have no problem with you growing with our alliance, and eventually you will reach 3.5 million and you will become our Raguro Riven garrison captain. The same goes for the other garrison captains that we're seeking as well. So we also are looking for a T6 or high T5 awakened Chasey garrison captain. Again, armaments over 3.5 million, but if you have it less, like let's say 3 million, that's also okay. We're also looking for a T6 or high T5 awakened Ethan garrison captain. Hopefully that can pair up with either Lewis, Sophie, or Victor with armaments over 3.5 million. So as you can see, garrison is our biggest weakness right now. So we're trying to fill in the gaps so that we can win more events by covering our issues with our lack of garrison captains. We're also looking for T6 or high T5 infantry rally captain with armaments over 3.5 million. And hopefully that has an awakened Stella and Eddie. That way we have a player that can help us counter our opponent if they use a Chasey garrison. Other T6 rally captains are also welcome, whether you are rider or range. If you have a strong set of armaments and vehicle workshop, then feel free to reach out to us and we'd love to speak with you about joining our alliance. Now, I'll also mention what we don't want to join our alliance. So we don't want a player that has a big ego and elitist, because that creates a toxic environment for the alliance. We want friendly people that wants to work towards a common goal of making our alliance stronger and effective during PvP events while building building friendship with fellow members at the same time. We don't want any players that are know-it-alls also. So sometimes veteran players act like they know everything, and the truth is no one knows everything, including myself, okay? I know I make the YouTube videos, but I'm still learning myself. Like, even personally, I make a lot of mistakes and I just have to learn from them. So we don't want players that are paranoid, you can't make any mistakes, or they act like they know everything because they have a strong account, mainly because they spend so much money on their account. Like, having a strong account because you spend a lot of money on it doesn't mean you know all the information. It just means you're good at spending money. We also don't have any problems with whales or people that spends a lot of money in their account, as long as they're not somebody that is a know-it-all or has a big ego. That's perfectly fine. I think spending in the game is fine as long as it makes you happy and you're being responsible about it. We also don't want any T6 players expecting special treatment, because sometimes we get T6 players that join our alliance and they expect our alliance to make them our force right away, which is ridiculous. Like, you haven't earned it and members don't even know you. We don't know if you even have any leadership skills. Just because you boss people around doesn't mean you can be a leader. You know what I mean? In our alliance, we treat all members fairly and as a friend, and don't give any special treatment to anyone unless they've been part of our alliance for a long time and they've shown to be loyal and reliable, in which case, yes, most likely they'll get some special treatment. We also don't want any negative complainers and whiners. Those people are so annoying. We don't want people who's complaining and bitching, matches are unfair, blah, blah, blah. I mean, give me a break. Like, this game is not made to be fair. It was made to be unfair because this game is a business that IGG created to make a profit. So unfortunately, the game should be more balanced, make it more fun, but in reality, it's not. So sometimes you join a PvP event and you're fighting against a bunch of whales and then you're dead pretty much. Sometimes you get lucky and you're the strongest alliance and you win. Sometimes you're not the strongest alliance, but the whale alliance that's beating everyone is your ally. So then piggyback them and get a higher rank in the event. We want players that are solutions oriented, and when there's a problem, instead of whining and complaining, they're working with our team to solve that problem. Like I said, we all have an open inbox and our alliance chat is open for discussions when it comes to solution. So solutions are good as long as you think about it first and you have a good logic to back it up, and we're happy to hear it. We also don't want any players that are bad listeners, because those players, they don't do well during PvP events. They'll garrison the tower with the wrong troops, and ideally we need people to listen to the battle plan so that we can execute it better and win the events. So what character traits do we want from our potential recruits? Well, we're looking for people who are problem solvers. So when there's a problem, they're open to discussing it, and we're open to suggestions, as mentioned, during PvP events if there's conflict within the alliance or with opposing alliances. And if you have any advice or any suggestion, if you've thought it out and you can provide good reasons for it, feel free to bring it up, and we're happy to hear what your idea is. Like I said, we have an open communication within alliance member, and I think that's important for every alliance to have. We also want responsible members who don't blame others but find ways to take ownership of situation to better improve themselves and our alliance. So people who are pointing fingers that this person screwed this person or this person screwed us, that doesn't help anybody. So take responsibility for what you think you did wrong, and then think of a solution to right the wrong, and ultimately that's how you're going to become a better player and also a better team member. We want someone that can also take a joke. Our alliance jokes around a lot. We are joking all the time, especially when we are not in a PvP event. You won't fit in with us if you're overly serious, you have a big ego, you can't take a joke, and everything that someone says to you is offensive and you get butthurt. We also want people that is mentally tough, because our alliance, a lot of times we end up in very tough PvP fights. In the last island raid that we did, we had 12 hours never ending fight against 3 different alliances at one time. It was like 1 versus 3, and they had such a hard time pushing us back because our alliance is so tough. We don't give up that easily. Eventually I did have to go to sleep, and when I went to bed, obviously we had less T6 presence on the field, and also with the rally and garrison, eventually more players went to sleep, and obviously we got pushed back. So as mentioned, we do need more players. That's why we're recruiting, especially garrison captains, to help us win events. Now I'm going to talk about the perk of our alliance. So the first perk, if you look at our list of members, is we do have 20 auto healing tools. Yay, it's open 24/7, so during PvP events, you can heal your troops through tapping. The gold in the vault is also shared between players who perform well or participate for a long time during a war battle, or they pick up an alliance job. So as you can see, we do spread out the wealth to members all the time. And this goes for merit chests as well. You also have a chance to learn from veteran players or players that have studied this game a lot, such as myself or Jigsaw and Tess or Neanderthal or Riker. You know, these guys, they know a lot about this game, so you have access to players that are knowledgeable to help you improve faster. We do control the metro, so you can get metro buffs faster as well. This alliance is also in a newer server. As you can see, we are in server 645. And the good thing about new servers is usually the new servers, they're more light, they're more fun, they're not so stiff. So that's a big benefit for sure. And there's also plenty of opportunity to move up in ranks or become special within our alliance, because at this time we are lacking a lot of garrison captains. So if you join us, if you're T6 or high T5 and you have Riven and Rigaro awakened, or Chasey awakened, or Ethan awakened, then you can be one of our main garrison captains in our alliance. So imagine having that spot for yourself, being like that person. You're like our go-to person for this specific garrison. You also have a chance to become one of our main rally captains as well, either for infantry with Stella and Eddie, rider with Felix and Lena, or any future rider siege hero that they might release, which is most likely going to be a siege hero, or even with range. I don't mind having another range rally captain alongside with me. You also have a chance to be one of our main field captains to provide field presence for our alliance, and you also have a chance to move up to become an R4 if you display effective leadership qualities while being really friendly at the same time. Because as you can see, we only have 4 out of 8 of our R4 positions currently filled, so we do have room to promote 4 more individuals. However, we will not promote anybody that is not doing a job. Everyone in our R4 and R5 team has a job and they're all doing it. I hate being in an alliance when there's some person there who's part of the R4 and you're like, what does this person ever do? So we don't want that. This alliance, everyone does something. If you don't want to do the R4 task anymore, you're welcome to drop back down to R3, but you always have the option to go back up to R4. So in the past, we did have members who were R4s. They dropped down to R3. Later on, they wanted to become part of the leadership team again, and we had a spot open, so they moved back up to R4. So members are welcome to go up and down depending on where they are in their current life. We always say real life comes first. So if real life is getting in the way of you having additional responsibilities to manage the alliance, you're more than welcome to just drop down, be a normal member, just enjoy logging in the game, fighting, don't worry about responsibilities, and we have extra time, you're welcome to join the R4 team again, assuming there's a spot open. Anyways, if you're interested in joining our alliance and you want to apply, send a message to Spicy, myself, or Jigsaw. We're happy to talk with you. You can also send a message to Dab and Hades as well, and they can point you to our direction. You're also welcome to also just send an application first, and we'll talk with you as soon as we are online. Anyways, that's about it for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.